Hello everybody. Some of you that have been subscribers for a while may recognize this clump style birch project that I put together last year from 7 individual seedlings that I'm trying to fuse, and I put them into this large seed tray and wired them up a little to give them some shape, and they're wired together at the base in the hope that they will fuse together and become one 7-trunked tree. It's been my experience, and I've tried lots of fusion projects, that birch fuse better than a lot of trees. In fact, of all the species I've tried so far, birch and ash seem to fuse better than any of the other species. And here's one I did earlier in the grand tradition of well, this was actually 5 trees. There's a slight scar there, and a slight scar there where 2 of them died, but they've left me this nice chunky little trunk with 3 little individual sub-trunks coming off it, which are actually beginning to silver up now, which is really nice and pleasing. Again, not a classical bonsai, but one that I really like. So yeah, and I'm going to put this 7-trunk clump into this lovely cream bonsai pot that I had for Christmas. And I know it's going to look a bit silly initially, but as my old nan would say when she gave me a jumper that's too big, it'll grow into it. And I'm just going to treat that big pot as if it's a training pot, rather like this seed tray, but one with a bit more depth, and hopefully that'll allow the trees to grow quickly and get quite fat and do that fusing thing that I like at the base there. People say you shouldn't put a tree in a bonsai pot until it's ready, and that's partly about artistic reasons, but more so in that if you put a tree in a small bonsai pot, it'll stop growing, but equally if I put this in a small plant pot, it would stop growing. By putting it in a large bonsai pot, it's no different than putting it into a large training pot, in my view. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to try and get this out without disturbing it too much, and get it into there. If you're new to the channel and you're wondering, the tray is to contain the mess. The soft drinks can here, which is just a normal size, regular size drinks can, is for scale, because sometimes it's not always easy to see the scale of a tree on screen. Okay, so this is my preferred front. But actually, as it's going into a round pot, that's kind of irrelevant. First thing I'm going to need to do is release this piece of wire that was holding this tree out at that angle, and that's pretty much done its job. The base of the tree is fixed. The top has sprung back a little, but it's fine. The rest of the wire, if I twist it and look just so, I can actually see a little bit of light between the wire and the bark of the trees. So for now I'm going to leave it on where I can. Okay, let's see if we can get this tree out. The trick is going to be getting it out without disturbing the trees, because I don't believe they'll have been in here long enough to have fused yet, although they've done quite a good job at trying to fill the pot with soil, so a much better job at that than I expected. I think, rather than risk disturbing these before they've properly fused, I'm simply going to trim this root ball so that it will fit into that pot, and again cause the roots to regrow. Let's clear the decks a little. I know I've said it before in other videos, but birch are really quite, they have this sort of look of ease and gracefulness, and you know, when you see that silver trunk up against the sky, up against the blue sky in the winter, they just look majestic and graceful, but they're actually quite thuggish in their behaviours, and well, you can see by how much they filled that pot with roots, that they're not standing around waiting like little wallflowers. That's why they're often known as colonising trees, who get in there first. Okay, so I want that to be a little bit, I actually think that's going to give me a really good depth, because I want the soil to cover just loosely at the moment for this pruning, this root pruning, above this piece of wire, which I don't know whether you can actually see. There's a piece of wire wrapped around all 7 of these trees, holding them in place, stopping them moving, and I want the soil above that in the hope that it'll root out above that, and give me that nice chunky nabari. Similar to this, I think, if memory serves, the wire is actually inside that line just above my finger. There, so yeah, so I'm just going to put in a very thin layer of fresh compost. Should be plenty enough. A little sprinkling, quite a generous sprinkling of controlled release fertilizer, and then the pot has these kind of feet, so I want the feet to be like that as my front, if that makes sense, those little arches, and this I think is my front in terms of the tree, so that ought to be just about right. Yeah, quite pleased with that. Let's give you a quick 360 before I fill it in. Yeah, definitely this tree is a little bit pimple on an elephant's backside, but that's fine. As I say, it'll grow into it and look nice while it's doing so. I'm sure I just heard somebody at the back shout, "It doesn't look nice, it's too small for the pot." Each to his own, I guess. For situations where you want your tree to look good from all angles in a round pot, it's so much easier than in a straight square pot. I see why I had that piece of wire on that tree, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to shorten some of these so that we start getting some taper anyway. So whereas this tree is kind of heading back into the middle, and if you followed that line it would probably cross over eventually at some point, maybe 20 feet up, but we're going to forestall that by trimming it there. This new leader is then heading outwards. Tweak that bend slightly. And then I'm going to remove that piece, and again now I've got a new leader growing straight up. Again, I'm going to cut to a bud outwards. I don't want any of these all at the same height, and it would be nice if the trees were at different varying thicknesses as well. So this tree, I'm going to cut it right back to this branch here. I see no viable, oh no, there is a viable bud just there. I was going to say I couldn't see any viable buds between that one and that one, but there is one just there, so chop it there. Take out that piece that's growing up into the middle. And shorten that back and that back. Okay, so then back to the front. At some point I may put a piece of wire on there, but for now I'm going to leave well alone. I have chopped off a fair chunk of root, so I'm just going to let the tree recover. I need a good drink now, and then we'll give it a swift turn on the turntable. Obviously this tree is going to grow and evolve and change over the next however many years I've got left in me doing this as a hobby, and as I say, it'll grow and it'll fatten up and it'll thicken up and begin to look more like it fits in this pot at some point. This branch here, I'm wondering if I can do something with the lip of this pot, whether it's going to be too slippy. No, it's going to be too slippy. I would just like to move it a little bit over, because it's kind of hiding behind this front piece. Unless I can move that slightly. But, that's better. Now that isn't firmly in behind. Cool. I'm happy with that. Give you a quick 360. Imagine this in 5 years' time, when it's completely fused at the base. Those roots are exposed. The trunks are gleaming white, silver grey. Will be nice, I think. I'm looking at a tree over white, approximately double this. And it may be that come the end of this summer I will prune this down lower. But I want to give it a chance to grow, fatten, fuse. It's the 28th of April and the birch fusion clump is looking rather splendid in this pot, even if I do say so myself. I'm really quite fond of this pot, and I think as the trees fatten up over the years and really fuse together at the base, they're really going to look nice in this pot. That's my hope, that's my dream, and hopefully it'll become a reality. You may recognise this as the birch. I guess I coppiced it at the same time as I put that clump together, and yeah, it's growing away rather nicely. It's the 28th of April, and it responded by throwing me up 3 strong shoots, and that's what I've gone with. And yeah, I hope to have a nice little clump style tree from this one as well. So it's the end of May, the 31st to be exact, and yeah, this little birch clump is doing its thing very nicely. I don't really want to do very much with it at the moment, except I have a problem with this particular trunk, which has decided to grow itself forward, so that it's going to begin to interfere with this, and I want to keep the centre of the clump open, and almost as if I had a premonition that this was going to happen, I'd left a little piece of wire extra on this particular trunk, so all I need to do is pop that round, and this is all fresh new growth, so it's not very firm, and it won't take long before it firms up even further and will set quite quickly. I'm going to have to keep quite a close eye on these wires to make sure they don't cut in, but I think that definitely looks better. And now that we no longer have that trunk potentially interfering with the others, I'm really liking the movement at the base of some of these trees. Maybe a little more in that one. Yeah, just going to let it grow now and see how it looks. Actually, I think I might want to do something with that. I've got a suitable piece of wire here, or if I need to cut a fresh piece, it's not going to take much. Yeah, that should do it. Pop that in there. Anchor it down. And then I can just pop a little bend in there, and now it's no longer going off towards the other one in quite the same manner. That's better. No. Yeah, so that's it for now. We'll keep filming a little bit here and a little bit there, and hopefully I'll have something interesting for you towards the end of the year. I'm going to put on one more piece, a little piece of wire, just with this one. It's got a very abrupt bend there, and I'd like something a little more gentle. So anchor the wire. And I've said this 100 times, I know. If you want tips on wiring and beautiful wiring and neat wiring for the show trees, etc., that's not me. My wiring is usually down and dirty, but gets the job done. And hopefully I don't forget to take it off before it cuts in. There we go. Happy with that. And hopefully these trees will all fuse in the base, and I'll gradually be able to expose the base more and more as the years go by. It's the 24th of July now, and I haven't been keeping a close enough eye on this little birch clump. Unfortunately, the wire is digging in, although the trees have been growing well. Well, I say although they've been growing well, it's precisely because they've been growing well that the wire has started to cut in. So let's give you a better view of that. On most of the trunks it's not actually a big deal, but there's been a little bit of scarring, but nothing major. So, for example, there's a slight scar on this tree here, but how well the camera's picking that up, this tree in the back, we've got some quite major scarring going on. Fortunately, it is the tree at the back, although my plan was always that this tree clump of trees, fused clump, call it what you will, will have multiple fronts. It will always have a best position, I guess, but for the most part these wires haven't dug in too fiercely, except for that one tree, so can't have everything, I suppose. As I say, should have kept a closer eye. And let's quickly move that piece of wire, and there's another piece of wire on here, which again has not scarred too badly, just a few vague marks, but that's okay. Those will disappear quite quickly. That was easy to ignore ones, now for the not quite so easy to ignore. Yeah, if I pull that branch back, then you can see quite clearly that the wire has grown in a little too much. However, we shall just have to live with that. Me more than you guys, I shall have to see it regularly, whereas you guys will only have to see it when I make a video, or you rewatch this one, though why you would, who knows. So there we are. There is nothing I can do immediately to correct that. Time will do healing of it for me. So plenty of little weeds growing. I'll pull back out and we'll look at what I'm going to do with the rest. So now I'm going to start trimming up this tree a little bit, and I don't like this particular branch that's growing out across the front of this other one. It's fairly low on the trunk, so I'm going to lose that, and then I'm going to shorten that like so. And then I'm actually looking and thinking I might replace leaders with a branch on quite a few of these trees to try and get some more taper in. So I'm going to snip that there and reuse a little piece of wire. Like so. Don't used to use much because it's quite a thin little branch. I will need to keep an eye on it. Okay, so there we go. So that's given me a little bit more taper just there. I'm going to do that with wherever I can, really. So this one I can shorten slightly. And then I just want to bring that up right. Like so. Making sure that the two don't interfere one with the other. And this one, yep, I can do the same with this one. Unfortunately, none of this will get rid of those scars on that other trunk, but it still introduced a bit of movement and a bit of taper. And this will be a procedure that I will continue over the next few years to try and build a trunk. Okay. This one, yeah, I'm going to wire that up. Okay, this one, yeah, a little bit. It needs something, give it a little bit more definition. Okay, and then this one I'm going to shorten back to there. So I'm tempted to take it right back to there, which would lose some of the big scarring. Yeah, I'm going to do that. It'll be interesting to see how well this one catches up. As it were. Okay, make sure it's nice and loose. Okay, and then finally I'm just going to do some little bit of chopping back. Nothing major, but you know, just keeping the whole thing a little bit in bounds, chopping back these trunks a little more. I don't want them growing too huge. And there we have it. Let's move that piece. A long way to go with this trunk, this tree. It's going to take a while for these trunks to fuse satisfactorily. I'm going to take that off there, shorten that. I'm not going to bother wiring that, but I will leave that as it is. There we go. And now this tree will go back on the bench. I will be keeping a closer eye on it to make sure this new wiring doesn't cut in, but other than that, that's all that's going to be done to it this season. I'm sorry this video has been a little bit longer than normal, but I hope you enjoyed it anyway. Thank you so much for watching. Please do take care of yourselves. Stay safe.